Hello everyone, welcome to my stream again. Been quite a while since I've done one of these, but I figured that with the new build, with a rather massive build, would be time to create a new video series or a new video, new live stream. This is going to be the first of 4 parts. I'm going to try and do the first 2 parts tonight and the other 2 parts tomorrow night or sometime over the weekend. But anyways, I'm going to be reviewing the first these 4 cars that have just recently been released by iRacing: the new MX-5, the Audi R8, the Formula Renault 2.0, and the Mercedes GT3 car. So I'm going to start out with the MX-5. I've had a little bit of seat time in the car already. A couple nights ago at the Nordschleife circuit in a hosted session, and so I've already got a bit of an opinion on the car. I already have a little bit of a base setup that I like, but this will be more of just a kind of giving my review of what I found out the other night from it. I'm looking in here real quick just to see if there happens to be any hosted sessions that have the new car that might interest me. I'm not really seeing any just yet. If not, I'll just go into the iRacing series that they have going on right now that features the car, and I'll just go into a practice session. Oh, no, that's the old one. Here's the new one. The road course at Daytona 2007. Interesting. That session has about 20 minutes left in it. That'll be good enough. I'll go do that one. Let's get this loaded up here, and then while it's loading, I'll give you a little bit of a synopsis of what I discovered the other night. Oh, apparently I cannot join this session. It must be full. Alright, well, that's alright. I'll just run into the one of the iRacing, what are they calling it? The MX-5 Shakedown. Let's go shake down the MX-5. So, this is starting up now. You'll have to pardon me for just a moment. I'm trying to, oops, that's high speed. That's fast dash. I'm trying to use the scene switcher. Apparently it's not working the way that I wanted it to, but that's alright. Hopefully you're seeing iRacing showing up now. Yep, looks like it's working. Okay, anyways. So the other night, like I said, ran a little bit in this car. I like the steering wheel the way it looks, although I have found that this Mazda logo is actually fairly distracting because having gotten used to some of the GT3 cars that have the line in the center of the steering wheel to show you where the wheel is, having that blue in there as well is actually, in my opinion, is a little distracting. But yeah, it is what it is. The car itself looks really good. I like it. I'm not necessarily a fan of the way that iRacing does their carbon fiber on the dash. I don't know, just something about the way that they create their texture for it, to me, just doesn't look right. But yeah, like I said, it is what it is. You can kind of see it a little better there. Oops, I know you can't. I see. It's apparently moving it over a little too far. But anyways, like I said, I do like the car. I like the sound. If it's a bit of a bumblebee again, just like the old one. But I think that in general, all of the cars that I've driven on the new build so far have sounded really nice. I think they did a good job with this one as well. I think the car in general looks really nice. Before I set off, I'll just give you, in case you have not looked at it already, a quick look at what the outside of the car looks like. Let's bring it in a little bit. So there it is. I do like it, the way that they've modeled it. Obviously, they have the scan data that they have to go off of. Oh, and I should mention also, I'm running the new DirectX 11. I had to turn down a few settings, graphics-wise, just to get it to run correctly on my system. But it's not bad. As far as the car and the way it drives, it's an interesting car. It doesn't feel a lot like the old one. It doesn't. I don't know that it's actually quicker accelerating. It does feel like it is. I think I don't know much about the car in reality. What I was told the other night by a friend of mine is that this car is it's lighter, but it has a less powerful engine as well. I think I'm remembering that correctly. Somebody can correct me in the comments if I've got that wrong, but it drives really nice, except when you hit some kind of compression. And this might be something that I have to just dial out with the setup. I haven't messed with the setup much at all. The little bit that I've done off the baseline setup was just a little bit of dampers adjustments, because what I noticed is that if the shocks compress while you're turning, it can really hook the car pretty bad. So, for instance, if you're hitting a curb with any sort of a curb or a bump on the inside with any significant speed at all, it really makes the car want to hook in that direction. So for instance, the curb that I'm coming up on right here, that one, I mean, I barely clipped it there, so it didn't really do much. So why don't I get up to the top of the hill here? This corner here, see if you can see. That's what I mean. It hopped that curb, and when it came down, it really wanted to leap to leap to the right, the direction that I was turning in. And I noticed that particularly at Nordschleife the other night, that I couldn't attack some of the curbs that that the old one could. And actually, last week I did a significant amount of driving in the old MX-5 at Nordschleife, just for the fun of it, in the what do they call it, the Industriefahrten Fun or something like that. That series with the old MX-5, I ran quite a lot of laps there last week, and then got in this car just a couple nights ago, ran the same layout. Well, actually I shouldn't say that. I ran a different layout. I ran the 24-hour layout. But on the Nordschleife, it was any of the curbs that you can really attack in the old car. I felt like I couldn't with this car. And if you do, I felt like I had to really have the car in a pretty neutral state, where I wasn't braking, I wasn't accelerating. I was giving it a little bit of gas just to kind of keep it neutral over the curbs. But if I was doing any kind of braking or accelerating, it would really want to. It got really tail happy, it seemed like. Aside from that, I actually really like the way this car drives. It feels like it accelerates a little harder. I can't be certain that that's not just a feel thing that I have. It doesn't get as far through the gears as the old one did. For instance, fifth gear goes further than it used to, I think. That's been my impression anyways. That the old one I could get up to about clear. I want to say right around 185 kilometers per hour before I was having to shift up into 6th, and this one I think I can get closer to 200. But despite that, going up the very long hill at Nordschleife, and I forget the name of what the hill is, but it's the long hill that kind of leads up into the carousel area of the circuit. I'm cursing myself that I can't remember the name of it, but anyways, I was remaining in 5th gear the whole way up that hill, and whereas with the old one, as I was getting to the top of the hill, I was having to shift up to 6th gear, and despite the fact that I was staying in 5th in this one, I was going faster at the top of the hill. Under brakes, this car is very good compared to the old one. It doesn't lock up as easily, I don't feel like. I'm not sure if this has anti-lock brakes and the old one didn't. But I feel like it's much more controllable under braking, and it's just better on the brakes in general, that I can brake later than I could with the old one. But there again, with that kind of odd behavior that it has when the shocks are compressed, if you're braking hard and turning, it doesn't seem to like doing that so much. So trail braking is a little bit trickier in this version of the MX-5 than the old MX-5. Again, a lot of the impressions that I have had of the car may be simply setup issues that I have not worked out because I haven't spent much time on the setup. But with there being kind of limited setup options on this car to begin with, I don't feel like there's a whole lot that I could do with it. Again, that might just be my impression of it. Your results may vary, but that was kind of the gut feeling that I had at the end of that 2-hour session that I ran at Nordschleife. Here at Road Atlanta, the doom and gloom of this weather, I did like 3 laps in the car before I started up this stream, just to make sure that I had my streaming software set up correctly, because with DirectX 11, some of the and the addition of iRacing's own video capture software that they've added into it, some people have been having issues with video capture or live streaming. So ran a few laps here before this session, and now I'm obviously running this test, and kind of felt like the results that I had at the Nordschleife were kind of the same that I was having here, where if you're clipping a big curb, particularly if you're on throttle and in gear, unlike there where I was on throttle and not in gear, it had the kind of the tendency to really whip the car right there just a little bit. But again, same thing though, where if I had the car kind of neutrally balanced, where I was just giving it a little bit of throttle so that I wasn't, completely coasting and engine braking for that matter, but not actually accelerating at the same time, it did seem to handle the curbs a little bit better. I think this is a fun car. I don't know if iRacing has changed anything in the way that they model the clutch on some of their cars, but I did notice that last week in the old MX-5 I was continuing to struggle with missing shifts because of the really long input that you have to have on the clutch. I feel like I have always felt oh, excuse me.
Microphone activated.
I've always felt that iRacing got that wrong a little bit, where it's a lot of their H-pattern cars, like the MX-5, like the Mustang FR 500, the Solstice, some of the basically any of the cars that are H-pattern that require the clutch. I've always felt like they demand on input from the clutch was wrong, where it was demanding that you keep the clutch in, keep the clutch pedal depressed longer than what you would have to do in real life. I know that on my own car, my personal car, I can shift quite quickly up and down with no problem whatsoever. And if my clutch in that, my clutch in my real life car has a much longer throw than my Club Sport V2s that I'm using. But despite that, I have no trouble shifting much quicker in that car than I could ever do in any of the cars in iRacing. I just felt like that was something where they've just kind of they just had kind of modeled the clutch incorrectly. Now, having said that, with this car, I'm not sure that I've missed a shift at all yet in this car. Come to think of it, it doesn't look for sure like this car even requires the clutch. I actually have not tried. Yeah, it looks like it does, sort of. Yeah, I can shift without the clutch at all in this car, it looks like. But I have to be a little bit more deliberate with my throttle, with releasing the throttle on the upshifts. So like right now I am not using the clutch at all. So maybe that's a different transmission in this car. Yeah, see there, if I'm not using the clutch I have to be a little bit more deliberate with lifting off the throttle. But I can lift and lift and blip the throttle for downshifts, and it seems to downshift just fine. Yeah, so maybe that's just a thing with this model of the MX-5. Maybe the transmission is different in this one, and like I said, I don't really actually know anything about this car, the real life version of it, so I might be completely talking out my ass, but either way, I feel like in general, shifting this car is much, much easier than the old MX-5 was. The steering in this car doesn't feel really too much different than the old one. The suspension in general feels stiffer, and not like stiff like rigid, but just it feels like the car is a little more in tune with the road than the old one was. It certainly doesn't have the same bounciness as the old car did, which is maybe part of why this car doesn't seem to want to handle curbs. Maybe why this car doesn't seem to want to handle curbs as well as the old one. It's maybe there's, I don't know if there's not as much suspension travel to absorb some of the bumps like the old one could. What is this guy doing?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Left side. Clear on the left.
Okay, anyways. I wanted to tell this guy thank you, but I can't because I didn't set up my microphone for the new car. But anyways, yes, so the car in general does feel just kind of like it's more in tune with the roadway, and that's a good thing. Some downsides I feel like to this car. I don't like. I still don't like the way iRacing models their the digital dashboards in hardly any of the cars. To me, they just look cheesy, and maybe this is very accurate to what it looks like in real life, but it just seems I don't know, it just seems video game-ish in its presentation. I know I also have some of my graphics settings turned down because of DirectX 11. Some of the various things I can't run as high quality as are possible, but it has always felt to me like these digital dashboards, you know, have always been just ever since I joined iRacing in 2010, they've always seemed very just kind of childish and video game-ish looking. But you know, I also have not driven an MX-5 in real life, so I don't know if this is actually a completely accurate representation of it. I doubt it's a completely accurate, but you know, it's probably not too bad from the real thing. But aside from that, I mean, I know I'm nitpicking with details like that. I really don't think that there's anything about the car I dislike. I actually, yeah, I mean, as the slower cars go, the rookie cars that have been used, I really do like this one. I've always liked the Solstice. Ironically enough, I mean, the Slowstice as other people call it. I don't know why, I just seem to really like that slow, heavy car. The old MX-5 I liked. I kind of had a love-hate relationship with it. I liked it when I could feel like I had a hold of it, but it always felt like that car, if I hadn't driven it in a while, I'd have to really take an hour or two of practicing it to really get back in the hang of it. Whereas this one, or with the Solstice, I feel like I can just jump in it and immediately be fast. I'm not pushing myself in any way right now because I'm doing the live stream, but I feel like I'm still putting in relatively good laps. I mean, considering my, like I said, lack of concentration and my lack of time in the car, particularly at this track. It's just a car I feel like, and even if I'm not going fast, it's a car that I feel comfortable in right away. And anytime I can jump into a car and immediately feel comfortable, I know that there's more speed that I can then get out of it, because I can work on, you know, how I'm driving. I can work on how I want to set the car up to make it faster, to make it even more comfortable. But if I get into a car and right away I'm struggling just to keep the car on the track because it's just a very uncomfortable feeling car, I need to work for a while on that aspect of it before I can start working on anything else. And that was an issue I had with the old MX-5, where because it had kind of a bouncy feeling to it, in my opinion, I always felt like it was a car that I needed to get used to before I could start working on being fast in it. And to give you an example of the other three cars that have come out with this build, I ran like 3 or 4 laps in the Formula Renault at Brands Hatch, just as I was trying to get DirectX 11 working correctly. So I mean, I can't really make any judgments about that car, but I did spend a fair amount of time. But I did those few laps in that car, and then I haven't done any time in the new Mercedes yet, and I did probably about 45 minutes of laps around Sebring in a hosted session in the Audi, and was not in any way comfortable in the Audi. And I mean, I worked on it for yeah, probably about 30-35 minutes before I sort of felt like I could get around the track in the baseline relatively comfortably. And then my teammate in the room at the time threw a setup at me that he had been using, and it was better, and it was faster, and it felt a little more comfortable, but still there was just something uncomfortable about it that I couldn't really put my finger on. But that review of that car is going to come up in a little while. I think the one that I'm going to do after this will be the Formula Renault, and then I'll work on the Mercedes and the Audi either later tonight or sometime over the weekend. But for now, this is going to be it for this review. Like I said, I do really like this MX-5. I think that iRacing nailed it. I can't wait to actually race it in an official series and official sessions. And I think it's a good addition to the service. I do hope they keep the old one around in some fashion. I hope they don't just retire it to the hosted sessions only. but I have a feeling that that's going to kind of be what ends up happening. I hope that this version gets used as the rookie car in the MX-5 series and the advanced MX-5 Cup or whatever it's called. Oh, and here's something else that's news: the new animations for the pit crew guy. I've not seen them yet, but it's interesting stance that he's got going there. Yeah, it's interesting animations. It certainly looks a lot crisper, a lot cleaner, person, despite the bit of scruff on his face that they're animating now. But anyways, like I said, I do like the car. I have a feeling that this one will replace the old one altogether. But I hope they keep the old MX-5 in like the production car challenge or the Grand Touring Cup or whatever it's called, that runs with the Mustang and the Volkswagen. But time will tell on that. And well, I shouldn't say time will tell. I'm sure it's actually been put into the schedule, which I have not looked at. So, anyways, I'm rambling at this point. So at some point over this weekend, I'm also hoping to record a new video with this car. I'm going to run the 24-hour layout of Nürburgring in this car, and I'm going to create a heel toe video for my heel toe hot lap series, which I need desperately to make many more of, because I started that series and I haven't put hardly any videos into that playlist. But anyways, that's the new MX-5. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure you're clicking on the like button. Make sure you're subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.